Stop scrolling. I know you've heard that before, but this time it's different. What I'm about to share isn't just another insight or technique. It's a message that Carl Jung discovered after decades of working with thousands of patients. A message so profound that once you truly hear it, you'll never see your life the same way again. Jung found that there's a force within you, something deeper than your conscious mind, that has been trying to reach you your entire life. Every struggle, every pattern, every moment of pain or longing has been this force attempting to wake you up. If you've been feeling like something's been calling to you, if you've sensed there's a deeper meaning to what you're experiencing, if you've wondered why certain things keep happening, this message is for you. And I promise you, if you stay until the end, something fundamental will shift in how you understand your existence. Don't skip this. You're supposed to hear this right now. The first part of this divine message might be the hardest to accept, but once you understand it, your entire relationship with pain transforms. Most people view suffering as something that happens to them, bad luck, unfair circumstances, punishment. They spend their lives trying to avoid pain, organizing their existence around not feeling discomfort. But Jung discovered something radical. The self uses suffering as its primary tool for awakening. Jung called this the night sea journey, the necessary descent into darkness that precedes transformation. When your conscious ego is moving in the wrong direction, living inauthentically, avoiding your shadow, refusing your calling, the self creates suffering to redirect you. Think about your life, the moments of deepest pain, the relationships that fell apart, the jobs you lost, the plans that collapsed, the crises that broke you. What happened after? Not immediately, but eventually, you changed, you grew, you saw things differently. You became someone new. The suffering forced transformation you wouldn't have chosen consciously. Think of suffering like a fire alarm. The alarm is loud, painful, impossible to ignore. Most people spend their energy trying to silence the alarm, to make the noise stop. They take pills, distract themselves, numb out, avoid. But the alarm isn't the problem, it's the message. There's a fire somewhere in your life, something that needs your attention, something dangerous that you're ignoring. The alarm gets louder and louder until you finally address the actual fire. Your suffering is that alarm. Jung described this as the compensatory function of the unconscious. When the conscious mind moves too far from truth, the unconscious creates symptoms to restore balance. The self is saying, there's something wrong here. Your life is burning in ways you're not acknowledging. Pay attention, change direction, wake up. And here's what most people miss. The intensity of your suffering corresponds directly to how far you've strayed from your authentic path. Mild discomfort means you're slightly off course. Devastating crisis means you've wandered so far from yourself that only catastrophic pain can redirect you. The suffering isn't punishment, it's precision. It's your own psyche using the exact amount of force necessary to wake you up. Not a degree more, not a degree less. Just enough pain to break through your resistance and force you to change. This is the first message. Your suffering has been purposeful. Everything that's hurt, every crisis, every breakdown, it's been the self trying to wake you up to live your actual life instead of the one you thought you should live. But suffering alone isn't the only way the self speaks. This second part of the message reveals something you've probably noticed but haven't understood. Have you noticed patterns in your life? The same type of relationship that always ends the same way. The same conflict that keeps arising in different settings. The same feeling of being stuck that appears in various forms? Most people think these patterns mean they're cursed or broken. Why does this keep happening to me? They blame external circumstances, other people, bad luck. But Jung understood. Repetition is how the unconscious teaches. When you miss the lesson, the self creates the same situation again and again and again, each time hoping you'll finally see what you need to see. Jung called this the repetition compulsion, the unconscious drive to recreate unresolved situations until they're finally resolved. It's not self-sabotage, it's self-healing, attempting to complete itself. One man Jung worked with kept experiencing the same pattern in his career. He'd start a job excited, work intensely, gain recognition, then something would happen. A conflict with authority, a feeling of being constrained, a sudden urge to quit and start over. This pattern had repeated 5 times. Same cycle, different companies. He told Jung, "I must be self-sabotaging. Something's wrong with me." Jung helped him see differently. Nothing's wrong with you. Yourself is presenting the same situation repeatedly because there's a lesson you need to learn about authority, autonomy, and how you relate to structure. Each repetition is your unconscious saying, "Look at this, see this, understand this." You keep running away before you learn what it's trying to teach you. Jung asked, "What if instead of quitting again, you stayed with the discomfort long enough to understand what it's showing you about yourself?" The man did. He stayed in the conflict instead of fleeing. And he discovered he wasn't rebelling against external authority. He was rebelling against his own inner authority. He kept giving his power away, then resenting the structures he'd empowered. The pattern wasn't about the jobs. It was about his relationship with his own sovereignty. Once he learned the lesson, the pattern stopped. The same situations no longer arose because the self no longer needed to present them. The message had been received. And here's the profound part. Once he integrated the lesson, he could finally stay in a position long enough to genuinely excel. Not because he forced himself, but because the unconscious drive to flee had dissolved. The repetition was complete. This is the second message. Repetition is divine teaching. When the same pattern keeps appearing, yourself is asking you to stop running, stop blaming, stop avoiding, and finally see what you need to learn. The pattern will continue until the lesson is integrated. Now, this third part of the message changes everything because it transforms what you thought were weaknesses into sacred guidance. Most people are taught to distrust their deepest desires. Be practical. Be realistic. Stop dreaming. They learn to suppress what they truly long for in favor of what they should want. But Jung discovered, your authentic longings are how the self communicates your destiny. The things you've yearned for your entire life aren't random. They're divine directions toward who you're meant to become. Jung called these longings the voice of the self, persistent inner calls that reveal what needs to emerge in your life for you to become whole. There's a longing you've carried for years. Maybe it's a creative calling you've dismissed as impractical. Maybe it's a way of living you've told yourself is impossible. Maybe it's a depth of connection you've decided you don't deserve. That longing isn't a weakness. It's not wishful thinking. It's not escapism. Think of longing like a compass needle always pointing north. No matter how much you try to redirect it, ignore it, or tell it to point somewhere more practical, it keeps pulling toward the same direction. That's not stubbornness. That's design. The compass knows where true north is, even when your conscious mind insists you should go east. Your longings are that compass. They're the self, pointing you toward your true north, the direction of your authentic life, your real calling, your actual destiny. And here's what makes longings so reliable. They don't fade. You can ignore them for decades, suppress them, tell yourself they're foolish, but they never completely disappear. They keep whispering, keep calling, keep pulling you toward what needs to live in you. That persistence isn't neurotic fixation. It's the self refusing to let you forget who you really are. Every time the longing surfaces, in a moment of quiet, in a dream, in sudden tears when you encounter something beautiful, that's the self saying, remember, this matters. This is real. Don't abandon this part of yourself. The tragedy is how many people reach the end of their lives still carrying unlived longings. Jung described this as the unlived life, the potential that never manifested because the conscious ego refused to honor the self's direction, still yearning for what they never allowed themselves to pursue, still carrying the weight of paths not taken, callings not answered, truth not lived. This is the third message. Your longings are divine directions. The things you deeply desire, even the ones you've been taught to dismiss, are the self showing you what needs to live in you. Stop suppressing them. Start listening to where they're trying to lead you. If you're starting to see your life differently, if suffering, patterns, and longings are beginning to look like messages rather than problems, please stay with me, because these next two parts of the message will complete the picture of how the self has been guiding you all along. This isn't abstract philosophy. This is about understanding that everything you've experienced has been purposeful, a divine orchestration designed to bring you home to who you actually are. Before we continue, check out our new guide, True Self-Discovery, with 24 practical reflection exercises designed to help you find your way within. Click below to get True Self-Discovery. Let's continue with the final two messages. Here's where it gets uncomfortable, because this fourth truth reveals why your life hasn't changed despite all your efforts. Jung had a principle: what you resist persists. But it's deeper than that. What you resist isn't just persisting, it's intensifying, because your self needs you to face it. The more you avoid, the louder it gets, until you finally turn toward it. Jung called this the encounter with the shadow, the necessary confrontation with what you've been refusing to see about yourself or your life. There's something you've been avoiding your entire life. Maybe it's a conversation you need to have. Maybe it's a truth you need to admit. Maybe it's a part of yourself you've rejected. Maybe it's grief you haven't allowed yourself to feel. You know what it is. When you read that, something specific came to mind. That's not random. That's the self bringing it to your conscious attention right now. And you've been resisting it, creating elaborate strategies to not look at it, not feel it, not deal with it. Your entire life might be organized around this avoidance. But here's what Jung understood. That thing you're avoiding holds the key to your next level of growth. Your resistance is actually a marker, a sign from the self that says, this is where you need to go. This is what you need to face. This is where your transformation lives. One woman Jung worked with had spent 20 years avoiding grief over her mother's death. She'd built a successful life, stayed busy, never allowed herself to fully feel the loss. And she couldn't understand why, despite her success, She felt hollow inside. Jung told her, "Your resistance to grief is costing you your aliveness. You can't selectively numb. When you shut down grief, you shut down joy too. Yourself has been trying to bring you to this grief for 20 years, creating situation after situation that might crack you open. But you keep avoiding. The hollowness you feel is your soul saying, 'I need you to feel this.' This grief is the doorway to becoming whole." She finally allowed herself to grieve, and it was devastating. But after the grief moved through her, something else emerged: aliveness, color, feeling. The capacity for joy she'd locked away when she locked away pain. The thing she'd been most resistant to facing held what she most needed: the ability to feel fully again. And Jung helped her understand something profound. The energy you've spent avoiding grief for 20 years, that's energy that's been unavailable for life. Every defense mechanism, every distraction, every strategy to keep the grief at bay has required constant psychic effort. Now that you've faced it, all that energy is freed. You're not just feeling again, you have access to life force that's been locked in resistance. Within months, she was creating art again, something she hadn't touched in 2 decades. Her relationships deepened. She felt present in moments she would have previously sleepwalked through. The resistance had been draining her life force. Facing what she'd been avoiding restored it. This is the 4th message. Your resistance is your roadmap. The thing you've been avoiding most intensely is where the self is calling you to go. Your transformation doesn't lie in your comfort zone or your strengths. It lies in facing what you've been running from. The self keeps bringing it up until you finally turn toward it. And now, this final truth might be the most profound of all, because it reveals that everything we've discussed has been building toward one ultimate realization. Jung spent decades studying what he called the individuation process, the journey of becoming who you truly are. And he discovered this isn't a process you initiate, it's a process that initiates you. The self, your deepest essence, has been calling you toward wholeness from the moment you were born. Jung described individuation as the life task, not something optional, but the fundamental purpose of human existence, to become consciously who you unconsciously already are. Every experience you've had, the good and the painful, has been the self's curriculum for your awakening. The suffering taught you what needed to change. The patterns showed you what needed to be learned. The longings pointed you toward your path. The resistance marked what needed to be integrated. Nothing has been random. Nothing has been wasted. Nothing has been a mistake. Think of your life like a seed becoming a tree. The seed doesn't decide to become a tree. It's already a tree in potential form. Everything the seed experiences, being buried in darkness, pushing through soil, weathering storms, reaching toward light, isn't random. It's all part of the design that brings forth the tree that was always meant to emerge. You are that seed. The self is the tree you're becoming. Every experience has been necessary to bring you from seed to full expression. The darkness wasn't punishment. It was the soil you needed to grow roots. The struggle wasn't evidence you were on the wrong path. It was the resistance required to develop strength. The storms that nearly broke you, they pruned away what was weak, forcing you to grow deeper roots. The periods of drought when nothing seemed to be happening, your roots were spreading underground, building the foundation for future growth. The seasons when you felt completely buried and lost, you were germinating, preparing for breakthrough. And now, right now, you're being called to recognize what's been happening all along. The self has been speaking to you through everything. And this moment, You reading these words is another message in that ongoing conversation. Every coincidence that brought you here wasn't coincidence. Jung called this synchronicity, meaningful coincidences orchestrated by the self to guide you toward awareness. The feeling that you should watch this video, the way it appeared at exactly this moment in your life, the resonance you're feeling with these words, none of it is random. The self brought you here, now, at this exact point in your journey, because you're ready to hear this message, because it's time for you to wake up to the intelligence that's been guiding you all along. This is the fifth and final message. You've been called all along. The self, the divine intelligence within you, has been orchestrating your life to bring you toward wholeness. You're not making this journey alone. You're not creating your path from scratch. You're awakening to a path that's been calling you forward from the beginning. If you've stayed with me to this point, something has already shifted in you. You're beginning to see your life not as random chaos, but as divine order, a conversation between your conscious self and something infinitely wiser. Here's the complete message Jung discovered. Your suffering has been purposeful, designed to wake you up. Your patterns keep repeating because you haven't learned the lesson yet. Your deepest longings are directions, showing you your true path. What you resist holds what you need. Your avoidance marks your transformation. The self has been calling you all along, orchestrating everything toward your awakening. This isn't philosophy. This is the truth of your existence. You are not alone. You are not lost. You are not making mistakes. You are being called, guided, led by something within you that knows exactly where you need to go. The question now is, will you listen? Will you trust? Will you follow where the self is leading? I told you not to skip this. And if you've stayed until now, you know why. This message, that your life has been a divine conversation, that everything has been purposeful, that you've been guided all along, this changes everything. You can't unsee this now. You can't go back to believing your life is random, that your suffering is meaningless, that you're alone in navigating this existence. The self has been calling you, through pain that forced growth, through patterns that taught lessons, through longings that showed directions, through resistance that marked transformation, through every moment of your life. And right now, in this moment, the self is calling again. It brought you to this message. It made sure you didn't skip, because you needed to hear this now, at this exact point in your journey. So here's what you do with this message. Start listening. Pay attention to your suffering. What is it trying to teach you? Notice your patterns. What lesson keeps presenting itself? Honor your longings. Where are they trying to lead you? Face your resistance. What do you need to integrate? Trust the calling. Where is the self guiding you? Your life is not random. You are not lost. You have never been alone. The divine intelligence within you has been orchestrating everything to bring you to this moment of recognition. Now you know. The question is, what will you do with this knowledge? How will you respond to the call? The self is waiting for your answer. It's been waiting your whole life. Don't make it wait any longer. If this message reached you the way it was meant to, subscribe for more Jungian psychology that honors the divine conversation happening within you. To dive even deeper into Jung's revolutionary psychology and what it means for your spiritual awakening, click the recommended video on your screen now. And remember, you didn't find this video by accident. The self brought you here. This is part of your path. Trust it.